Today we're going to be making raspberry yogurt cups. To start off with though, we need to get our raspberries pureed. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook them down for just a few moments along with a little bit of sugar. Now we're doing keto, so this is a half sugar, half monk fruit substitute, which will be amazing. So we'll just cut back on a little bit of those processed sugars. But I just want to point out something. When you get your raspberries, make sure you're washing them really well. I have mine also soaking in some water after they've been washed. And the reason for this is think about it. Human hands are touching the berries and pulling them off, aren't they? Well, in some cases it's machinery, but somebody's touching these all the way along the process, so we want to make sure we wash our berries really well. That goes the same for all fruit, for that matter, and vegetables. Make sure you're washing them. Nobody wants to get any kind of nasty sickness. Okay, enough said about food safety. Let's get moving on these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the raspberries into my pan and along with my sugar and on the stove. All right, let's go ahead and get our raspberries turned on. I'm going to start them at a higher heat and then lower as we go. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting in that sugar, that mixture of sugar and monk fruit. Now, if you like yours sweeter, you could add more. If you like yours less sweet, you could add less. But this is kind of how we start. We're going to let that heat and we'll be back in a minute. You can hear and see that this is starting to boil. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat down just a little bit, probably to about a medium low. We want it to simmer, but we don't want it to stick to the bottom. Now I'm going to use a funky tool, which is basically a dough mixer, right? Usually you mix up dough with this, but I'm going to go ahead and use this to chop up my berries. I like it because it kind of slices like a knife, but look how it chopped them up so nicely already. After about 5 minutes, this is how they'll start to look. You want to give them a little stir. And then just leave them be. We'll be back. As you can see, this is simmering away very nicely. Now it's approaching the 10-minute mark, and what I wouldn't worry about is you might be thinking, well, that looks a little like soupy, right? It does thicken as it cools and as it sits. So we're not going to let this cook too much longer, because if I do let it cook beyond the 10-minute mark, sometimes I've forgotten about it, walked away and came back and it was too thick. So we want it to be a little syrup-like when we make our yogurt parfait. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut off the heat. And I'm going to just remove it and let it, we're just going to let it kind of sit for about 5 more minutes. Now, if you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait for it to completely cool, you can plunge it into a bowl of ice water. That will get you cooled down a lot faster. But see, it's already thicker than it was when we looked at it a few minutes ago. And as this cools, it'll even get thicker. You can see our raspberry, what I call raspberry coulis, our puree, looks beautiful. And see how it's not so runny? It's kind of nice, right? Now, I guess it's time to give it a taste. Here's our little taste. It's beautiful. It reminds me of, do you remember those slightly tart candies, like sweet tart kind of flavor? It has that flavor, which is really nice. All right, let's get moving on and make our raspberry yogurt parfait. All right, we want to start off with a pretty glass if you're doing something brunch-like, or you just want to treat yourself to a beautiful little breakfast. We'll take an ice cream scoop full of Greek yogurt and drop that right in there. Depending on how much you want to have, you could certainly do more than one scoop, but we're going to do one scoop today just for fun. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the raspberry and I'm just putting it right over the top of my yogurt. Now that will sweeten my yogurt up enough for me. But if you wanted to, you could certainly drizzle a little bit of honey over the top of that. Now we're doing a keto diet. Normally I would be putting granola right on the top of that, and that's the one that we show in the recipe. But you can just use some chia seed if you are on a keto diet, and then that would be wonderful as well. And you could garnish with maybe a little bit of mint or something to that effect. We don't have any mint in the house today, but just to make ours look pretty, we're going to garnish with just a little bit of a herb flower that we have here. And there you have it. There's our beautiful raspberry yogurt parfait. Thanks for watching For the Love of Food.